και κύριοι, hello ladies and gentlemen. This is our third show. It was quite unexpected. When I say unexpected, I mean we didn't really advertise this show here that we do. We didn't even talk about it. We just felt like doing it. I had a visit from Mr. Timoleon, and we said, well, let's do a show today. Whenever we have time, we try to do some shows, because this way we can also see how we can improve, how we can do it even better than the previous time. We're gonna talk about many things. As you know, we are skepticism here. We are the Temple of Skepticism. That's how we call ourselves. But at the same time, we are all about Hellenism pretty much. We approach Hellenic matters the Hellenic way, because we're Hellenes ourselves. We are Greeks. So. For whatever we talk, we have some perspectives, some interesting perspectives. Let's don't forget that the Greek language was the universal language for back in the days. Even during the Roman Empire, half the empire was speaking Greek. The whole civilized East was pretty much speaking Greek, the east part of the empire. So this way we have some access to many things. We're able to judge, we're able to see things, and we're able to have some kind of understanding about all these things. So we can have some perspectives that other people cannot. Not because they are not smart, but because they don't have what we have. Some of our own little things that we can use. Everybody, we are different, we have some different knowledge that we can get into things that other people cannot. We had the Greek show before, we talked about some things, and now we're gonna keep going, we're gonna say more things, we're gonna talk more about what we said. So, we mostly talked about Hellenism again. We tried to see how things are here in the United States, and in the diaspora, in the Greek diaspora. We talked about the fact that we have to preserve our own identity, which includes our language, our civilization, our religion. And when I say our religion, it's more specific. I mean the Greek religion, not all the other religions that are supposed to be Greek. I mean the original Greek religion, which is something that most people don't know, and most people dislike usually, especially when they hear religion. Come on, guys. I mean, we're in the 21st century, but the thing is that we don't talk about the religion in the way that we understand religion. We talk about something different, something more secular, at the same time more mystical, perhaps more meaningful in many ways. It was something that was created by civilized people. It wasn't created by people who used to walk in desert, or who used to be slaves. I mean, the Greeks at the time were very highly advanced. Most people cannot realize that easily. We can, with the Greeks, because when we compare ourselves to the old guys, we can see a huge difference. We can see that these people were very, very educated compared to us, from the way they were writing, first of all, from the way they were making their own myths, their own theater. Everything they were making was, compared to us, was at a higher level. We look barbarians when we're next to them, and this is why we can see them. I mean, maybe the English people also, the Anglo-Saxons, see that to themselves when they compare the Shakespeare from England, the way he was writing, some polite ways, he was using some iambic meter, and he was more like using words that show some intelligence, and they show some cultivation, compared to what we have today. I mean, the Hollywood and all these things, which technologically they sound great, they look great. I mean, they have so many effects and things like that, but when it comes to the theory of it, when it comes to the understanding, to the meaning of what they present, sometimes it's not doesn't have the qualities that we can see in the old guys in Shakespeare, and the language is also inferior compared to what Shakespeare used to speak and how he used to write. Or that's what I think at least. But in Greek it's even more. It's even, I mean, in Greek you see that also, and this is why we went into that as well. And when it comes to the genetic part of Hellenism, we also talked about that, and we pretty much said that it's important to keep that as well. It's important because people who don't have a specific race, a specific coming from somewhere or whatever, usually they don't, they're missing something, and they cannot be full 100% Greeks. I mean, nobody can be. I mean, some people are not 100% Greeks because they don't speak the language well, or because they don't know the Greek religion as well. But the other part is also important, and we stress it perhaps a little more because it's something that cannot be reversed. Usually we see that. We see that in our experience that most of the Greeks who marry with non-Greeks, who live like non-Greeks, who get away from our community and our culture, usually tend to become different. They tend to get away and get assimilated into a mass of people who don't really know where they come from, and this is not Greek. This is not Greek to us. It's something that we don't really praise that much. So that's why we are opposing to it to some extent. So Timoleon, do you agree to any extent?
What did you say?
Do you agree to any extent of what we said about the Greek, the preservation of the Hellenic?
No, I don't agree with the way you are saying it. I must tell you that I disagree. Yes, I did.
Okay, okay.
But let me set you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so. I don't agree with the way you're putting it, even though I can see I can feel your pain and I can understand it.
It's not
first
of
all,
it's just something that I try to assess.
I understand. There is a certain pain involved there, and I can understand it. First of all, I am not interested in the preservation of Hellenism.
You're not?
No. I want Hellenism to find itself and to achieve greatness.
Yeah, but isn't preservation part of it?
No. No.
Should we
this is an idea.
Once we do that?
No.
So we should preserve ourselves.
No. Preservation should not be a goal. What should be a goal is excellence. For example, if I want to do the right thing and I want to get married and have children, I'm not going to have children and get married in order to preserve. But because I'm a good person and because I'm a healthy person and all of that, and I want to have children, but I want to get married and I will have children. Having children, it will be something that comes from it. I will not say that I'm going to get married in order to have children, but I'm going to get married and I will have children. Preservation and all of those things are to me ideas that are foreign. I believe that Hellenism should express itself with the creativity and the greatness that it has.
I agree.
In other words, Hellenism, and I'm not talking about Greeks, I'm talking about Hellenism, and Hellenism for whoever is listening to us is the right way to call ourselves because we are Hellenes. The Romans call us Greeks. The Arabs, they call Yunans, they call us Yunans, and so on and so forth. Other people call us differently. But we call ourselves Hellenes, and I'm a Hellene. We as Hellenes, we have something very, 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 very special. And that I want to, and if we are healthy in doing and act Hellenically, we will make it better. And in the process, of course we will preserve Hellenism. But I'm not going to do anything just to preserve Hellenism. So, The point of Hellenism is this. In the history of mankind, there was one nation, one set of people, or group of people, that brought humanity to a different course. They elevated the whole world into a different way. And what is that way? They saw, instead of pursuing uniformity, they pursued unity. What do I mean by that? They saw the whole world and everything multidimensionally, not from one perspective, one form, uniform, right? In other words, they didn't say that we, whoever we are, the Hellenes, whatever we say, it's the right thing, and whoever somebody says is the wrong thing. They didn't say, this is only one way and the right way, and anything else is wrong. They found a multi-dimensional perspective, which is so beautifully is exhibited in the Olympic Games. What is the Olympic Games? There is not a struggle between evil and good. It is the struggle between good and better for the achievement of excellence. It's not, when you read Homer, you're not going to find that the different heroes who are opposing one another are one side is good and the other is bad. They're both fantastic. They're both fantastic. Hector, the Trojan, is good, and so is Achilles. Aeneas, the Trojan or Lycian, who is with the Trojans, is wonderful, but so is Odysseus. Homer, the great divine poet, did not come to divide the whole world and say that some people, some idea is good and everything else is evil. No. They brought the whole world to see this beautiful perspective that competition, struggle, is for the pursuit of excellence, and the opponent, even when you oppose him, is not evil. Hellenism means that. That's what Hellenism means. And this beautiful thing achieves unity, but not uniformity. People and ideas who bring uniformity are enemies of mankind.
I totally agree. And
one more thing, and I'll finish.
Yes.
For example, Nazism. They wanted to make everybody Nazis and the Aryan race. That's wrong. Uniformity. Organized monotheistic religions. My way is the right way. Anything else is wrong. Wrong. If they are orthodox, if they're orthodox in the extreme in their way. So, and many other things. Or communism. Our way is the right way. And in other words, the worker is the good.
Yes.
That is wrong. The Hellenic way, it brings unity, never uniformity.
I totally agree, and what you say, Timoleon, is something that is very well known for those who spend time with Greek civilization and studying about the Greeks and try to find out about the Greeks and how they thought and how they felt. When it comes to the good and better, that's true, but you see, unfortunately, the Americans and the Greeks as well, many Greeks and most Americans, I would say, are used to this idea of the good and the bad. I mean, they are more like deists. They have a good and a bad, and somebody has to be the good, the other one has to be the bad. So when they think about Achilles and Hector, for example, they try to find out who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. Somebody has to be the good, the other guy has to be the bad guy. That's why they fight with each other. Otherwise, they wouldn't, if they were both good, they would be friends. But that's not exactly. Competition does not involve only the good and the evil. And usually, it has been a tradition of especially the Judeo-barbaric religions and things like that. I mean, monotheistics, whatever they are called. It has been a tradition to say that, you know what, there is an evil and there is a good, and they fight with each other and things like that, which is not the perspective that the Greeks necessarily approached. Evil is not an existence, a uniform existence, an existence that exists forever. It's just a perspective that can happen at some point towards something, For example, the sea is good. It's something that we love. We love to swim, we love to eat the fish that come from the sea, but at the same time, the sea can turn bad. Some people might be on a ship and the sea is so agitated that these people get to be sunk and dead after all. So yes, I do agree to that. Now, when it comes to the preservation that I started before, I said that why? I said that because we are at a point that even our own preservation is at stake. And I had to point that out. I mean, I felt like pointing that out. Our own preservation is at stake. I see that the Greek community is shrinking. People forget what they are and where they come from. And I don't say that we should not be, like pro-Americans. We should not be doing something for this country and being people in unison. But the point is that at the same time, we should not forget who we are. It's like with Odysseus, when he was traveling in the Odyssey, he was trying to go back home. His friends went to an island, and I see that, I think, in our modern sense, and there was a Kirke over there. She was a witch somehow. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. A magic woman or something. And what happened is she turned them into pigs. And that's what happens sometimes to the Greeks who live in this country as well. I see that, you know what, they find the food, they find the pleasure, they find they find some prosperity, and that is good. At the same time, it's bad, because that spoils them, and all they care about is eating and doing things like that, and they don't care about higher values. They don't even bother with that because they they find themselves pretty comfortable, and they don't look at the higher values, which is something that we should start looking more towards. We have prosperity, I understand that to some extent. Now we start losing the prosperity with the economic situations, I think, too. But at the same time, we have to start looking at the values that we have. And we have to look at these values. We have to start being more analytic about it and do not turn into pigs. Instead, we have to turn back into humans and keep our conquest, our journey, keep going to our journey. And the journey of Hellenism is what Timoleon said to a great extent, and what we will be presenting here. The course of Hellenism is the Olympic idea, the one that we see on the Olympic Games, what we try to do. It's like trying to become better people and better than better, whatever we can do. Of course, that's not possible sometimes, but we keep trying. It's possible, but we need the ideal conditions, and the conditions are not always ideal.
Make the conditions fit the requirement.
Well, yes, if we can do that,
and you can do that. But
yes,
you see, I would recommend really even the destruction of Hellenism if something better was there.
Yes, absolutely.
But really, this is what I would like to say to our fellow Hellenes and non-Hellenes. Hellenism is so beautiful.
Yes.
Hellenism not only should be something you say to be preserved, but I say to be enriched and strengthened for the good not only of the Hellenes, but of the whole world. Our fellow Hellenes, I call each one of you to see and to see the values of the true values of Hellenism and see how great they are, and see that with the same values, everybody in the whole world can become better. America, to a great extent, has taken in many of those values. The fact, the mixed political system and many of the values of America, they come from a Hellenic tradition. It's not total, I'm not saying that every part of it is, but it's great. I even say that the present American political system is even more Hellenic than what we have in Hellas today, in Greece today. So, Hellenism is so beautiful, and the point is not to preserve it because we are so self-centered, but because it is the means for goodness and happiness. We are truly best, truly eudaimonic, which is an ancient Greek word which means happy in the highest way, when we are expressing and acting according to what we are. And what are we? We're Hellenes. Now, we are happy to be and express what we are. An eye will not be a healthy eye if it does not see. And a Hellene will not be a good Hellene unless he acts Hellenically.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Timoleon. And these are messages that have to be passed, because here's the deal. There are so many shows going on. What do they try to do? They try to expose and to over-represent homosexuals. They try to over-represent some biases and some stupid ideas. I mean, I don't like to use this word, but you know, some ideas that are not really of so importance. Like they try to show some kind of selfishness and like people with being arrogant and like some hip hop singers with many women next to them. At least it's not too homosexual, but they try to show some kind of they try to expose and to over-represent some things and some ideals that are not really the best. And when I was doing theater history, we were talking about several theater ways of doing things, and we were talking about romanticism, this, that, whatever. And I said, how about idealism? We didn't mention idealism. And I said, how about idealism? Presenting something that is ideal to the people. How about that? It wasn't written. And I said, come on guys, why not? Why not to show some nice people, or even problematic people and problematic situations, but acting in a noble way? We don't do that anymore. For example, we see Oedipus, right? Tyrant. And he understood that something happened with his mother and he took his eyes off. This is an exaggeration, but it shows that, you know what, you have to respect your mother, but you try to pass some messages which are noble for those who can understand them and for those who have some level of intellectuality to be able to reach these messages. But unfortunately, these messages and this kind of plays are not they don't really exist anymore too much. That's what I think. And what they show is pretty much scraps on the TV and everything.
Well, art should be an expression of beauty, exactly, and for the sake of beauty.
Well, let me tell you about art, because I've done some art also in an academic level here in the States. In my university I did some art, and I did well, by the way. I did very well. But the only thing is this: when I was doing art, I had to, well, when I was doing, first of all, when I was doing art, I had a professor, and he said, guys, by the end of this semester, I have a goal. My goal is to convince you, to make you like modern art. He didn't convince me. I didn't like modern art after all. And I remember when I was teaching some kids in a class here in Manhattan, it was somebody else's idea to take them to the Modern Art Museum. They weren't kids, they were 12th grade and 11th grade kids, and we took them because it was summertime and they had some time extra. So we went all together to a museum. It was African American kids, and we went to MoMA's, the Modern Museum of Modern Art. I think that's what it means, MoMA. Anyway, to the MoMA we went, and a lady was there. Her name is Abramovich, and she's considered to be one of the greatest modern artists. Do you know what she was doing? Timoleon, have you heard about Abramovich?
No, I do not know.
Well, I'll tell you what she was doing. She was standing in a chair for like 12 hours, 24 hours, like that, without moving, without blinking, or even if she was blinking, she was doing it like in a way that it wasn't much understood or whatever, but she was like that on the chair for hours and hours, and she was supposed to be expecting somebody, and it was important, it was art, this thing. To my opinion, it was a stupidity, but besides that, besides
Doesn't mean you're correct.
doesn't mean, but I tell my opinion, and I still didn't finish with that. So that's what she was doing, the artist herself. But what she did, she also put some naked people all around, and I was taking the kids right next to the naked people. There was a door like this big, that you would go from one room to another, and they had one naked woman here and one naked guy here. And they were like, they were all naked pretty much, and we were passing by, looking, and the kids were like, whoa, you know. They had one lady, naked lady, and they were top models. They were, I mean, they were good looking, you know, their bodies were good. There was a lady, she was like on the floor with her legs open. The kids could see her totally naked, with the legs open, as I told you. She was like that in the back, in her back, and she had a skeleton right on top of her, in a way like having sex with a skeleton. So the skeleton was right like a skeleton, the one that we use in the colleges and the universities and things like that, and you see the bones and you say this is whatever. It was a whole skeleton, it was right on top of her. There was another one crucified up on the wall, and she was naked totally. They call that art. Well, I don't call that art. First of all, it's too ephemeral to be an art. It's something that ends right away. It's not as beautiful. I mean, the ladies were beautiful, I have to admit. The ladies that were put there, but still the whole idea, it's a crowd, I think. When we see the Greek art, for example, it's immortal art, it stays there. One thing. Another thing, they invest on beauty, they don't invest in bizarre ideas. I mean, representing the bizarre idea, they call that art. I mean, okay, I took this class anyway, I did do art history, and I wasn't convinced that modern art makes any sense. Why did I go through all these things? Because sometimes we think that the modern world is pretty much advanced. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I realize that in certain ways we are. In the technological improvements we are, because they make money, so the companies try to invest on them, and they elevated technology, because technology makes money. It makes those factory owners to get rid of people who need benefits and all these things. So they invested in technology, but they didn't invest on some other things. They didn't invest in the beauty of art. They didn't invest in spiritual senses. So we see some barbarians having technology in their hands, and I'm not talking about everybody, I'm talking about many of the people that you guys see and I see. And this gets me back to Prometheus, right? Because I think that's what Prometheus was all about. Prometheus had given the fire, he had given like technology to the people, and Zeus was like, you give technology, you give all this light to the barbarians, they're gonna get the light and they're gonna burn the world. Because you have to be ready before you get the light. If you give the light to the barbarian, he might throw a nuclear bomb in Hiroshima, I don't know where. He might do many things that are ugly. So, I mean, sometimes who would do that?
And ugliness sometimes is right here in front of us. I have to say to you,
yes.
I totally disagree with your perspective.
Great. Tell me
Totally
yours.
disagree.
Tell me yours. And this is the good thing about with the Greeks. We're not absolute. We always listen to the other people. If we hear something that sounds different, sounds better, we always accept it. We're not dogmatic. We don't have the absolute truth. Please tell me.
Okay, that's good. We don't have it.
First of all, about the modern art, do you agree?
Just 1 second.
Yes.
First of all, I believe that art, true art, should come from beauty and for the sake of beauty. This is not an easy thing to explain the philosophy of aesthetics. That's number one.
Yes.
And that Hellenic art came from a special place of expressing that beauty in terms of harmony and measure. And therefore it presented human beings in terms of unity and wholeness. So you find symmetry, you find measure in the Hellenic art, and it strives to achieve that perfection as much as possible, as it is possible, through the means by which they expressed it. So in sculpture, you see that in the different statues. The statues of the gods be more harmonious than those of the heroes, and those of the heroes be more harmonious and whole than those which are of a lesser kinds. So it's not an art of realism, but an art of idealism. Idealism in the sense that they use art to promote the yearning of Hellenism towards perfection. Okay. Now, let's go to the museum that you spoke before, the MoMA Museum, about this lady. I cannot judge, but let me, because I like to see things from the good side as much as possible, to see what she was trying to achieve. I could be totally wrong in this.
Okay.
Number one, she was making herself the work of art. Beautiful. How better is it to make yourself a work of art instead of doing a work of art on a non-living substance or canvas or marble?
That's not an art though.
Excuse
My
me.
opinion.
That's your opinion. How beautiful is it to make your art living and to express, in her case, the expectancy. That's what I get from what you said. I have no idea. You understand?
Yeah,
the expectancy of, let's say, show the form and the tone or of expecting somebody. Let's suppose a lover. Let's
That's
suppose
what she was
somebody,
doing, yes.
somebody beloved. Oh, okay, beautiful. How beautiful is that? How beautiful to make your whole being participant of the beauty of expecting somebody beautiful and beloved to you.
How about the skeletons and the naked ones?
I'll go to that. Now, again, I'm not a person who really has studied art, and I usually see more with the eyes of
with
my...
the naked art, I'm okay, you know, because
yeah,
that's what we were doing also.
but let me say this.
With the women, we weren't doing
Just
it.
a minute.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a person more that sees with the eyes of my mind rather than visualized, but I could see very clearly also. Now let's see. You have this lady on the floor, beautiful
Yes.
lady, and on top of her a skeleton. Am I correct?
Yes.
I'm sure it has some kind of beauty. I do not see really what they were trying to show. Perhaps they did try to show the temporality of human existence where at the time that we're making love, we are really walking or moving towards our own death. I'm not sure what we're trying to do.
Okay, but
1 second. I'm not sure. And how beautiful is it if art becomes a living expression? Like, for example, in theater, which I believe that it is a great form of art, where the participants, you know, the actors,
yes,
express with their very being the different roles that they do. And now, from what I understand, you had a lady, a beautiful lady, and some young men naked
in the
next
door,
to
where
the
you
door.
passed, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, we can analyze the art, but
but the point is,
Yeah.
again, to me, beauty is not in the eyes of the beholder.
okay, but the
No.
yeah,
Beauty, I'm going to say, is not in the eyes of the beholder. In other words, not relative. But however, because beauty, we are from beauty. And beauty, in other words, we are from beauty. And truly seeing beauty is not seeing a thing, but seeing the force or the agent which makes the whole world and everything beautiful. How beautiful is that? We are from beauty, and we should discover. We should really discover our own maker. Our own maker is the beautiful.
okay. When it comes to Picasso, for example, to some things that you see, like you see a paint, and it's just like some paints on top of it, and they say they give you some kind of nice feeling. Okay, they give you a nice feeling. They say they make you get into some particular dimension, whatever. To me, that's not art. That a child can do. And you know what? When it comes to art, I think that art is an art. Art is something that requires not only a talent, it requires knowledge. For example, when I see people in the Renaissance, I mean, from the art we can understand what we are at the moment. From this art we can understand, from Abramovich's art we can understand who we are at the moment. From the art of the people of the Renaissance, for example, you can understand who these people were. And from our art that we have today, we can understand who we are today. In the Renaissance, the sculptors and the artists used to study even the veins, even the insides, the wood, to do like to open sections, you know, to open the bodies of the animals, to see how they are inside, the muscles are, so that they can express these muscles the right way. So they were anatomists, they were everything. You see what beautiful art they did, and you see today's art, and you say, okay, this art was not done by a cultivated person the way the people in the Renaissance were. These guys are just, you know, like everyday people, nothing more than that. It doesn't make to me any sense. It's inferior. It's inferior to the Renaissance art, for example.
Well, it doesn't make to you any sense. Just a minute now.
And I studied that. It's not
if beauty itself,
yeah,
as the agent of the beauty of everything, which I believe it is, and I'm going to throw some words here and some things which will be a little bit difficult, but beauty itself as the source of intelligibility has its own understanding, which may not be congruent or easily comprehended by understanding it by an external criterion. Beauty, you have to go into the world of beauty to understand the intelligibility of beauty. I am not in this saying that all work of art today is good or bad, or some is good, because I cannot say. But I'm going to tell you that, and that's Hellenic, that do not judge things by measures which are not of that kind. the measure of art is beauty itself, not your values that come from A, B, C, D, which may be beautiful, and if they are good, but it has its own measure. Like, for example, if you're going to measure temperature, you have to have a thermometer that measures temperature through a certain device.
Yes.
Alright? And there's a certain measure that says, alright, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the measure where the water gets ice and so on and so forth. And above it is not freezing, below it's freezing, etc. There's a certain measure. And that is very important in art. The measure is beauty.
I agree.
For beauty,
yeah,
to appreciate it, you have to fall in love with it. To fall in love with it, and doesn't mean it's easy, and really become a person of beauty, is not an easy thing. Plato very clearly speaks in the Symposium about that, and I'm telling you, beauty is a beautiful, has its own path, and is different than the aporetic path, the path of wonder, of investigation, of science. It does not negate it, but it's different. And it's different from the path of enthusiasm, which is a different way. The Hellenic way, the Olympian way, is so beautiful because it offers different paths. And I'm going to recommend to you to become better by finding your own beauty. No, it's a mistake. By finding the creator of yourself, which is beauty itself. And if you follow that path, you'll see the beauty, and through that measure, you will measure these works of art if they're good or not, or rather, if they're beautiful or not.
I think I did that to some extent, and I had a negative experience. But anyway,
but I would find this lady Abramovich, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And again, I don't know about the other stuff, and you know, like, if I'm correct, and if she tried to achieve, to express the beauty through her silence of expecting somebody, a person whom she loved, and expressing that, and not just expressing it in outside, but her whole being there, that's beautiful. And that's a fantastic work of art.
That's beautiful, especially when I see it myself, and I'm like, how about kicking her butt right now?
That's terrible.
To get her out of there.
That's terrible.
Go wash something.
That's not, I have to tell you.
Go do something.
I have to tell you. That's
something useful.
I have to tell you, that's not Hellenic.
Go do something useful.
That's not Hellenic.
Okay.
Hellenic, you remember how, I mean, look, we spoke about it before. For 10 years, the ancient Hellenes were fighting the Trojans. And yet, they respected their heroes of the opposing side.
Yes, absolutely.
How beautiful is that?
It is.
There you find Diomedes, who is my hero, and he comes to oppose, I forget now the name of a Trojan hero, and they stay in the middle of the field, and they exchange niceties, and then they find that the grandfather of that Trojan had gone to Diomedes' place, and they say, oh, we cannot be enemies anymore, well, let's kill some other people, or let's fight some other people, but we can call ourselves friends. And you find that Homer expresses that fantastically beautiful idea that even your opponent is a worthy person.
Yes, absolutely.
In contradiction. And that's a work of art. Homer's Iliad is one of the most fantastic works of art,
If not the most fantastic.
in the history of humanity.
If not the most fantastic.
Well, I don't know. Even Bhagavad Gita, which I don't know if you know about it, you have two opposing sides, and Krishna is in the middle, and he says, how am I going to fight so and so who's so wonderful, but he's on the opposite side, and so and so. The point is that even in the Bhagavad Gita you find this appreciation of the opponent.
I do.
Now, how wonderful, refreshing, as opposed to ideas that, you know, whoever is my enemy is evil, terrible, despicable.
I totally agree
How
with
terrible.
that. I totally agree with that, but when it comes to art,
That's aesthetic.
if I don't like it, I usually express it myself.
You don't like it, I understand. But don't consider it despicable.
Back in the days, they used to throw vegetables. I mean, perhaps I won't do that. Perhaps I'll just kick the butt of the... just to get him out of there. Anyway, we said enough, I think.
You know,
It's
Heraclitus said
time.
one thing, and what
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you. He says, in the eyes of humanity, some things are good, some things are bad, or evil. But in the eyes of God, everything is beautiful. And that's Heraclitus. Think about it, a pundit who put it.
I always agree with Heraclitus, but I still want to kick her butt when she's standing like that for hours, you know? I think it's like something...
That's a contradiction.
It is. I am a contradictory person, and I just proved it.
You have to find your beautiful self.
Absolutely. It was nice to have this conversation today. It was, as I told you, it was a show that we did, it came out of the blue. We didn't really program that. But it might be interesting, you know. It's something extra that we did today. And next time we're going to have another show. It will be more organized. We will have many people talking. Because I'm enough with me, you know. You heard me. It's good to hear other people as well. Very interesting people that were able to call here and have them talking. Timoleon hopefully will be here on the next show and all the other shows as well. He's a very good friend. He's here in New York as well. Although he's in Brooklyn, he's not in Queens, where I am. Queens, Astoria, you know, the center of Hellenism, as it's supposed to be. As
The center of Hellenism is in
Brooklyn?
beauty. In
Oh.
beauty.
Oh. Okay, so have a good night for all those seeing this show today. Although some of you will see it on YouTube because it wasn't announced. And hope you will have a great time. Thank you very much. Bye.